The Parkland Institute is hosting the Implementing a Just Transition Conference on February 23rd and 24th online, and Dr. Jim Skea is one of the panelists. Dr. Skea is a professor of sustainable energy at Imperial College London and chair of Scotland's Just Transition Commission. Welcome to the interview, Jim.
Yeah, pleased to be with you.
Now, can you give us a little background on your work as chair of the commission? I understand there was an initial one, and now there's the second one, which you'll also be sharing.
Yeah. The first phase of the commission basically ran through 2019 and 2020 and spilt over a bit into a subsequent year. And there we were kind of charged by the ministers in the Scottish government with coming up with recommendations as to how Scotland could make a transition to net zero emissions by 2045, which is the legally binding target in the Scottish legislation, and do it in a way that took account of fairness, taking account of the social and economic consequences of that transition. And we interpreted that mission to think both about the kind of jobs people would do, what it implied for work, but also novelly, I think, for Just Transition to think about the consumption side as well, what it meant for consumers.
So what are some of the examples of that? I saw in your report that we were talking about boost investment in warmer homes, low emission buses, that sort of thing. Is that the kind of the approach that was recommended in your report?
Yeah, well, we produced 24 recommendations overall, and these were some of the very specific recommendations. But we actually, for kind of communicating what we were saying, we grouped it into 4 themes. And one of them was about the importance of planning for the future, because unplanned transitions tend to be unjust transitions, as we saw with the coal mining industry in the UK. There was a second theme about focusing on skills and labour markets, making sure people had the training to enter a zero carbon economy. We had very important messages about consultation with local communities and bringing people, so that Just Transition isn't something that's done to people, it's something that they own. And then the last one was a lot of attention to how the costs of it would be borne, who would pay, who would not pay for it effectively. So that's the way we structured it, and then warm homes and buses fell within that overall picture.
The idea of engagement with stakeholders and giving the stakeholders an opportunity to do their own plans seems like a novel approach to just transition strategy.
Well, just to say, the other thing that the Scottish government was running at the same time as we were operating was a citizens' assembly on climate change, where I think around 60 or 70 people got together over several weekends on a voluntary basis to talk through what they would like the transition to net zero to actually look like. And that was extremely helpful, actually. I mean, people from our commission participated in their activities, and many of the recommendations coming out of the 2 processes were quite aligned. But just to say, the other thing that we definitely did not do, we did not hold all our meetings in windowless offices in Edinburgh and Glasgow, the 2 main Scottish cities. Every meeting until Zoom came upon us, we were out there in a different location around Scotland, engaging with people through town hall meetings or site visits before we actually held our specific meetings.
Is there a fair amount of support for the, battling climate change, support for the energy transition and a just transition within the Scottish population?
Yeah, I think that's very much the case. I mean, it's been very much led by the government and the First Minister of Scotland, which have made it a big issue. And obviously, the Scottish target is to get to net zero 5 years before the rest of the UK. No competition there, of course, between the different components. And the message you got from that citizens' assembly was a very strong one. I mean, it was taken from quite a wide range of the population. And although some people started out skeptical, once they talked to the experts, they were really bought into the importance of it once they were exposed to the evidence and just saw the consequences of climate change and also some of the opportunities that come with dealing with it.
What are some of the lessons from your own experience chairing the first commission and now the second one that you expect to share at the conference?
Well, I think the key things is about the way that we actually operated. I would go into that. I mean, we were not an expert commission, though everybody was an expert. Everybody was there representing a different kind of interest, and the fact that we've got a very wide range of interests there, I think, really helped us. And what was really gratifying is that we stayed with a consensus the whole way. A really wide range of people, came up with a shared set of conclusions at the end of it that everybody bought into. And I think the process we went through, especially going out on the site visits, getting to know each other's perspectives a little bit better, was helpful. I should say that as we go into the second version of the Just Transition Commission, it is going to be tougher because the rubber is about to hit the road with the second one. There's some really, really difficult issues, for example, around oil and gas development that we're going to have to deal with in the second phase of the commission. So it will be a tougher job, no doubt about it.
Is it fair to say that process and engagement and consultation and conversations with people who are going to be affected is a key part of a just transition strategy?
It's an absolute prerequisite for the kind of changes that would be needed. I mean, whatever way you look at it, this is not a minor change that you're looking at. There are some big changes required in the way that some people have to work, the patterns of consumption, the kind of vehicles people use, the way they move around the country. And this will not be successful unless people have bought into it. If you try to do it against the social grain, the wagons are going to come off the tracks, essentially. So it's really, really essential that people feel that they own the transition and the way that it's being carried out.
Well, Jim, thank you very much for this, and we will look forward to your presentation at the conference.
And I look forward to a virtual visit to Alberta once again.